It was a warm summer evening in the small coastal town of Havencrest. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink as the waves gently kissed the shore. Elena sat on the wooden porch of her family's seaside cottage, sipping tea from her favorite mug, a chipped but beloved keepsake from her late grandmother. Life had been steady, predictable even, with the occasional ups and downs, but nothing could have prepared her for the storm that was about to sweep through her life. Elena was a writer, or at least she called herself one. Most days, she sat in front of her old typewriter, staring at the blank page, waiting for inspiration to strike. Her latest book, an unfinished manuscript titled Tempest of the Soul, had been collecting dust for months. She had promised her publisher a draft by the end of the summer, but her mind was as clouded as the horizon that evening. As she watched the tide roll in, her phone buzzed on the table beside her. It was a message from her younger brother, Adrian. "Hey, Elena. We need to talk. Can I come over tomorrow?" Her heart sank. Adrian wasn't one for heavy conversations. The last time he had sent such a message, their father had been diagnosed with cancer. She replied with a simple, "Sure," but her mind raced with possibilities. She tried to shake off the unease and went back to her tea, but the serenity of the evening was already beginning to fade. The next morning, Adrian arrived at the cottage with a look that confirmed Elena's fears. His usually easygoing demeanor was replaced by a tense seriousness. He barely greeted her before sitting down at the kitchen table. "Elena, I don't know how to say this," Adrian began, his hands fidgeting with a loose thread on his shirt. "Just say it," Elena urged, bracing herself.
"Mom."
He hesitated, looking at her with eyes that seemed to carry the weight of the world. "Mom's been diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's." The words hit her like a rogue wave, leaving her breathless. Their mother, Marjorie, was the anchor of their family. She was the one who had held them together after their father passed away. Now, the thought of losing her, not physically, but piece by piece, was unbearable. "How bad is it?" Elena managed to ask, her voice barely above a whisper. "The doctors say it's progressing faster than usual. She'll need more care soon," Adrian replied, his voice cracking. "I can't do this alone, Elena." The storm had begun, and it was more powerful than she had anticipated. Over the next few months, Elena's life was consumed by her mother's illness. She moved back into the family home to help care for Marjorie, balancing her time between doctor's appointments, memory exercises, and endless hours of research about Alzheimer's. Her manuscript remained untouched, gathering more dust with each passing day. Marjorie had moments of clarity where she was her old self, warm, witty, and full of stories about her youth. But those moments grew fewer and farther between. One evening, as Elena helped her mother to bed, Marjorie looked at her with a confused expression. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice tinged with fear. Elena's heart shattered. She forced a smile and said, "I'm Elena, Mom. Your daughter." Marjorie nodded slowly, but the recognition didn't return. It was in that moment that Elena realized how much of her mother she had already lost. She retreated to her room that night and cried herself to sleep. Despite the emotional toll, Elena found solace in small victories. A day when her mother remembered her favorite recipe, a quiet walk along the beach where Marjorie hummed an old tune. These moments became lifelines in the storm. As winter set in, the storm intensified. Marjorie's condition deteriorated, and her care became increasingly demanding. Adrian, who had initially promised to share the responsibility, began pulling away. Work commitments, he claimed, left him with little time to help. Elena was left to shoulder the burden alone. Her own health began to suffer. Sleepless nights and constant stress left her feeling drained. The typewriter sat untouched, a silent reminder of her abandoned dreams. One particularly difficult day, after a long argument with Adrian over the phone, Elena slammed the receiver down and screamed into the empty house. "I can't do this anymore," she cried, her voice echoing off the walls. "I'm not strong enough." But even as she said the words, she knew she didn't have a choice. The storm was relentless, but she had to find a way to weather it. One evening, while sorting through her mother's belongings, Elena stumbled upon an old journal. It was Marjorie's, filled with entries from decades ago. As she flipped through the pages, she discovered stories of her mother's own struggles, losing her husband, raising 2 children alone, and battling her own fears and doubts. One entry stood out. Life will throw storms your way, but remember, storms shape the strongest trees. They may bend, but they do not break. Hold on, and you'll find the sun again. The words resonated deeply with Elena. She realized that her mother had faced her own storms with courage and resilience. If Marjorie could endure, so could she. That night, Elena sat down at her typewriter for the first time in months. The words flowed like a river, pouring out of her with a newfound clarity. She wrote about her mother, about the storms they were weathering together, and about the strength she had discovered within herself. Her unfinished manuscript transformed into something deeply personal, a story of resilience, love, and the unbreakable bond between a mother and daughter. By spring, the manuscript was complete. Elena titled it Storms of Your Life, a tribute to her journey and her mother's enduring spirit. Her publisher loved it, and the book quickly gained traction, resonating with readers who had faced their own storms. Marjorie's condition continued to decline, but Elena found peace in knowing she had done everything she could. On one of Marjorie's better days, Elena read the book to her. Though her mother's memory was fleeting, she smiled and said, "It's beautiful, sweetheart. You've made me proud." When Marjorie passed away later that year, Elena felt an immense sense of loss but also a deep gratitude for the time they had shared. The storm had passed, leaving behind a stronger, more resilient version of herself. In the months that followed, Elena threw herself into her work, channeling her grief into her creative endeavors. She conducted book signings, gave interviews, and connected with readers who found solace in her words. The book had sparked conversations about Alzheimer's, family, and the strength found in vulnerability. One day, after a particularly heartfelt reading event, Elena received an email from a reader named Jack. He shared his own story of caring for a parent with Alzheimer's and expressed how the storms of your life had given him hope and courage. Moved by his words, Elena realized the profound impact her journey had made on others. As the seasons changed, so did Elena's life. She founded a support group for families affected by Alzheimer's, providing a safe space for sharing experiences and finding comfort. The group became a tight-knit community, and Elena found new purpose in helping others navigate their own storms. Years passed, and Elena's creative agency flourished. She continued to write, drawing inspiration from the resilience and stories of those around her. Though the pain of losing Marjorie remained, it was now intertwined with a sense of accomplishment and hope.